welcome to the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Wright, attorney, author, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. This is the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to episode 13 of the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. Today we have with us Kevin Dorsey from Our Family Wizard, which is the third-party developer of this amazing app for parents who are caught up in these high conflict parenting situations. Some of them involve the family court, sometimes they don't, but this is an amazing resource for anyone who needs help communicating with an ex regarding their children. Kevin, welcome. Thanks for taking the time out to come on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you on.
All right. Can you just give us an overview of Our Family Wizard and how it specifically addresses the challenges faced by parents in high conflict family court situations?
Sure. Yeah. So the elevator pitch is parents who are going through a divorce or separation, they'll communicate through our app in lieu of text or email or voice calls. So all their communication, unless it's an emergency, is going to go through Our Family Wizard. And then we give them the tools they need to co-parent. So messaging is the number one used tool. It's a lot like email, but it's going to go through our app. You can't delete things after they're sent. There's receipts on the messages because people will say, I didn't get that in time, or you didn't send that to me in time for me to see it. Things are sent. We'll see when they're read. Both parties see that. We have something you'll get a kick out of called Tone Meter. Have you heard of that at all?
I have. Yeah. I had one client who was using the app who was like, wow, this is kind of gave him a kick in the butt. But yeah, so it basically will correct the parent if they're using language that might be hostile or aggressive or like using maybe cuss words, things like that.
Exactly. So I describe it as like a spell check for your emotions, basically.
Okay.
So as I'm typing the message, just like Microsoft Word flags your grammar or spelling, this flags your tone. And so for your clients that they really struggle with how they're coming across over messaging, this will give them a red flag and say, that's aggressive. It doesn't force them to rephrase it. They can still send it. But what we find is when people are getting real-time feedback, their emotions come down a little bit and their logic goes up. And we want them to go back and instead of saying, don't be late as usual, we want say, please be on time. So we're just trying to reframe the tone before they send the message.
And how do people react to that? Do they like it, hate it? Are they like, what's the feedback you've gotten on that?
Yeah, most people have it on. It's an optional feature, so it can be turned off and on.
Yeah.
If you have someone who's struggling with their tone or the opposing side struggling, you can put it in the court order or put it in the mediation agreement, parenting agreement, say, you already use Our Family Wizard with Tone Meter on. Some people don't need it. Some people, they're professional, they're parallel parenting, co-parenting well. But for people who need that help, we've all had that coworker or family member who you're yelling at me through text and they don't understand how their tone's coming off. It's for those people who need a little training. And I think our goal is just to get the kids out of the middle, get the parents speaking more cordially to each other.
Now, how does Wizard ensure secure and confidential information between the parties, considering that there's a lot of sensitive information going back and forth between the two of them?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. We have a lot of sensitive information. We have domestic violence survivors using the site because they still have kids. A lot of times the abuser's still involved in custody or trying to get some custody back. So we know that we've got sensitive information. We're probably more secure than your bank. We've been doing this 22 years. We save all the data. So if people stop using the site for a few years, they can come back and those accounts are still there.
Right.
When you look at our site, it says HTTPS and has a lock symbol. You'll see the same thing on your bank's website. The passwords are 12 characters long, can't be common names. You can use a face scan to get in or a thumbprint. So we take security really seriously. And that gives people who are in those situations, right? Let's say I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I still need to communicate with my co-parent. I can communicate through Our Family Wizard without revealing my phone number, my new address, things like that. So I can keep those things that I've changed secret as well.
That's great. That's really good. So what sort of features does Our Family Wizard offer to help parents manage document communication, especially when it comes to court purposes, stuff like that?
Sure. So I touched on the messages just to finish up on that. You can turn our messages into a PDF report.
Oh, okay.
Court admissible. So it comes on our letterhead. It shows who generated the report.
Yep.
The date and time it was generated, and then what parents it's for, which children are associated with those parents. And since you can't delete things and you have those read receipts, you know what you have is authenticated.
Right.
What we're seeing when people aren't using Our Family Wizard is they'll bring emails to their attorney that they've deleted one email that makes them look better. They might have manipulated a date and time. Same thing with text. I can go into my text and I can delete one text in a chain and then print it off. So just know you do get a free account if you're a practitioner. You can get a free account with us that links to your clients that are using it.
Okay.
So you create these reports for yourself. Then you know what you have is authenticated for court.
That's great. How does Wizard address issues like potential harassment or misuse of communication?
Sure. That's a good question. So I think if you've been in family law for 2 months, you know this, that people tend to write these long diatribes, right? We're seeing these huge long diatribes between the parents. We're trying to have them use the tools first. So I haven't talked about the custody calendar yet or parenting time calendar, the expenses, the family information bank. We want them to use those tools first.
Okay.
It can't be conveyed through those tools, then send a message. We do have specific court order language that we can share with your audience. And there is a line in there about limiting communication. So what I like to do is put in, you are to limit the communication to being about the children and about the subject of the message.
Okay.
And so we're trying to take those paragraph, page-long things and get them down to 2 or 3 sentences. Most things can be conveyed in 2 or 3 sentences. Are you picking up from the dentist? Can we split Christmas where I take Christmas Eve and you take Christmas Day? And even could have been proposed on the calendar. I could just put those holidays in the calendar. That's the big thing, is reducing the amount of the length messages and giving them other tools to get those things done.
Yeah. It is amazing how people can take it and try to spin it. I had one situation where a parent wouldn't respond to a subject thread. Like they'd respond to the question, but in another thread, just like creating confusion. So I like your idea about adding language to agreements that not only will the parties communicate about only the children, but they'll respond in the subject thread about the subject and not answer questions or other topics on a subject thread that doesn't pertain to that particular issue.
Yeah, I love that. I call that cross-threading, where you're typing about the dentist and I respond about soccer, but that was in a different thread. It can be malicious and people are just absent-minded. Maybe they don't realize they're doing it, but I do put in the idea of putting that specific language in there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Now let's talk about the calendar for a minute, because the calendar really is huge. Second to the messaging, the calendar is amazing because so many people are like, I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. If it's in the calendar, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing by checking the calendar? Let's talk about the calendar and what sort of features that offers.
Yeah. So your clients might say, we'll just use Google Calendar, Gcal. We'll use Outlook. None of those are specifically designed for co-parenting. So if you go into our calendar, you're going to see the 2-2-3. Alternating weekends, 3-3-4-4. You're going to have these templates that you're used to seeing in these agreements. They can plug in, this is parent A, this is parent B, and it'll repeat. It'll show who's got the kids overnight, who's dropping off to events, who's picking up. It's all color coded. When you go to the app, you click on the calendar. At a glance, you can see, okay, we have an exchange today at 3 p.m. Then I've got the kids for 3 nights.
Right.
And when my time's done, I'm dropping kiddo off at a dentist appointment and my co-parent picking him up. Again, specifically designed for co-parenting. It's really tough to do these schedules manually in other calendars. Couple other features there. We allow them to do simple time modifications. So once they have the schedule in place instead of going back to court and saying, we want to switch a weekend or switch a day, they can propose trades within our Family Wizard and say, you trade me a day, will you trade me a weekend? Once it's approved, it automatically changes on the calendar. Last part I'll point out there is our holidays. So always pressure around Christmas and Thanksgiving and birthdays.
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to have the kid when? How many times do people go back to litigate Christmas break? So we're trying to keep them out of court on that. Give them tools to empower them to do this on their own. So the idea is you can plan the holidays out in advance. They will override that parenting schedule. I use the example of, let's say dad's taking the kids fishing first week of July. Put in a custom holiday, call it dad's fishing trip. It'll override that schedule. And once the fishing trip's done, the custom holiday's done, it'll revert back to the schedule they are on. So it's just a lot of tools we know where the pitfalls are, and we've addressed them with a specific tool for it.
Really keeps everybody honest. That's the big thing. Level the playing field, give them the tools they need to communicate, and then the ability to create reports so we can show who's been doing what when. What kind of reports?
Okay, so talked about the message report, nice PDF report. Can move over to expenses. So in the expense section, this is where, all right, I need to be reimbursed for a copay, right? I went to the doctors. I'm sitting there. I just paid $75. We need to split it 50-50. I can snap a picture of the receipt with the app. It's my co-parent. They can approve or refuse it. And then they have the ability to link up their checking accounts and send money through the site. If they don't do that, they can still exchange cash or check or Venmo. But then you have a whole reporting suite just for expenses, chronological report, a statistical report, and then every feature's got that. You switch over to like our journal, where have you heard about our check-ins at all, the geolocated check-ins?
No, I haven't heard about that.
It's pretty cool. We came up with the idea because we used to hear people saying, all right, we're having difficulty with exchanges. Parent A is saying they were there. Parent B said they couldn't find them. Who knows who's telling the truth?
Right.
People used to go to McDonald's. They'd buy a coffee or buy a Coke. They'd save the receipt. And that was their date and timestamp that they were there for an exchange. So we took that idea, and what we did was they can do a geolocated check-in with the app. And it limits them to within 500 feet of where they're standing.
Ooh.
So imagine like a Facebook check-in. It's going to pull up the businesses within 500 feet of you.
Right.
You can draw a pin. You can attach a picture. But I can say, all right, 12:30 p.m. I'm at the McDonald's ready to exchange kids. You'll see when the other parent sees it for the first time, and the other parent can check in as well. So that's the check-in feature. Again, you're going to have a PDF report that's court admissible on that.
That's huge. That's really great. So going back to the expenses, is that sort of like an add-on feature that you can, or does it come with like the bundle? How does that really work?
Yep. So our base price is $99. It's $10 more for tone meter. That it's you at the $99 price. You have the ability to add expenses. So I could send you an expense request. You could approve it or refuse it, and then would handle the money outside of our Family Wizard. I'd give you cash or check or Venmo. Once you get up to our middle tier pricing, I think it's about $145 a year. That's when they get the ability to send money through our Family Wizard. So you can actually link their checking accounts up and send money through the site. A lot of families don't need that, but if you're sitting there thinking, oh man, expenses have been a nightmare in the case I'm working on, right? Or bank account records, we can't figure out who's paid what for dance classes, what percentage split was supposed to be. You can use OFW Pay. That's what we call it, our Family Wizard OFW Pay, where I send you, we go checking account to checking account. And from the beginning of when it was proposed to when the funds were withdrawn and deposited, you see the entire chain. If for the family who's already using certified checks, those kind of families, they'll have the peace of mind that it's been handled start to finish. And then you as an attorney can read that report off and know what you're seeing is accurate.
Wow. That's amazing. What have you guys received for testimonials from people? What's the feedback with Wizard as compared to some of the other apps that are out on the market?
Sure. I present at conferences and exhibit at conferences all over the country. What's nice is people will come up to me that aren't even associated with our conference, right? They're there for another conference at the hotel, and they've come up to me and been like, hey, I happen to see the Our Family Wizard booth, and I'm a parent that uses this site. This saved my life. This saved my entire co-parenting situation. Right. And it's been dads, it's been moms. I think we like to stereotype who's the organized one or who's the one who's struggling, but I've heard it from both sides.
Yep.
They'll say, I was having such a hard time showing the court that I was doing my due diligence, that I was acting in the right. And so a lot of those success stories, some people are going to push back. Like, you might say, hey, this is a good fit for Our Family Wizard. And they say, I don't want to do this. I want to text. I want to do voice calls. I want to send emails. I think the response to that is, you don't have to do this forever. So most families use the site for about 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
What that tells me is at that 3-year mark, the emotions are starting to come down.
Right.
Logic is starting to come up. Their communication has improved. I see ourselves as like a training ground on co-parenting communication, and we can graduate them back to email and text and voice calls. Some families are going to use it till the last kid turns 18, but most it's about 3 or 4.
Interesting. Now, doubling back to where you were talking about how people push back with, I want a text or I want to email. Is there anything that the app has that can assist in handling situations where one parent refuses to use the app or engage in effective communication? If someone deletes the app, is there any sort of...
Yeah, that's a good question. So the thing is, we document everything. So it's so key to have that court order in place or a stipulation or an agreement so that it says, both parents need to sign up by this date, and they are to exclusively communicate through Our Family Wizard unless it's an emergency. Right. So then, say my client signs up, puts the calendar on, starts messaging, hey, I need help with a pickup on Wednesday. The other side hasn't signed up, or they signed up and they're not checking it. We can create those reports and show, okay, they signed up, but they've never logged in. Or they signed up, they looked at that message or they didn't respond to it, or they never signed up. So then you might end up back in court and saying, hey, we've got this in the court order. Both parties agreed to this. And now my client's done everything they're supposed to do and we're not getting responses. I tell people, I wish I could tell you kumbaya. We fix every family. We help a majority of the families improve their communication, but for that upper echelon of high conflicts, and tell that story for better or for worse.
Now, you had mentioned that attorneys get access to a free moderator account to babysit client accounts, so to speak. Do you do that for any other professionals like therapists or mediators or?
Yep. So we call them practitioner accounts or professional accounts. They're totally free. So everybody listening to this, that's a practitioner. You can go to our website, ourfamilywizard.com, click sign up. The practitioner account, you get your own username and password. It allows you to request to be linked up to the families you're working with, or they can request to link up with you. Once that's approved, you have access. So as an attorney, you only need access to your client's portal. You're going to see everything your client sees. Okay. They know you're linked up. The other side doesn't know you're linked up. Your client knows you have access, but they don't know when you're logging in, what you're looking at, and you can't change anything. So you can click on an unread message. It will stay unread. You can create those reports I was talking about. People will say, I'll log in through my client's credentials. Don't do that because your IP address is going to show up in their login history. You could accidentally open an unread message. So by using this practitioner account, you're protecting yourself from changing any documentation. And then to your question about the other roles in the process, think about your neutrals, guardian ad litems, parenting coordinators, parenting facilitators, mediators, therapists, anyone who has that neutral role can request access to both parents. And then they might help with communication, right? They might go in and say, hey, saw the message you wrote today. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some things we could have cleaned up. So that neutral can gain access to.
Now, in in your mind, how user-friendly is the app, especially for some parents who might not be as tech savvy or
Sure.
have limited experience with different digital platforms?
Yep. So the messaging system works just like email. So I think everyone at this point knows email. So if you can run that, you can run this. What's nice is we do have live customer support in the US. So we have people on the phone 7 days a week and available over email. So your clients can call us and say, hey, not great with technology. Will you help me set up my parenting schedule? And they'll walk them right through it step by step.
Wow.
Some people will say, I'm afraid I'll be taken advantage of because I'm not good with tech and my co-parent is really good. Like they're a developer. I feel like they're going to be able to take advantage of me. What's nice about our system, it's closed and so documented that because you can't delete things, because we're looking at read receipts, it's going to protect someone who's bad with technologies as well.
Right.
Because you can abuse email and text and voice calls so many different ways now that even someone who's bad with technology is going to be a lot safer in a closed, monitored format.
Yeah, no, you're right. Now, any idea about updates or improvements to Wizard based on user feedback that might be coming down the pike? What do you see maybe like a good feature that could be headed our way?
Yeah, so we see ourselves as innovators. We're always adding new tools like that check-ins thing, the templates for the parenting calendar. That's somewhat new. Tone meter, of course, no one else is doing that. What's coming down the pipe now, we are beta testing audio and video calls through our Family Wizard.
Yep.
So use case is, all right, in the agreement, it says dad gets a 30-minute video call with the kids on Sunday night. What was happening is people were doing that on Zoom or FaceTime, and then there's no way to prove that those happened. So people will say, they didn't call me, or they called me and they hung up after 5 minutes, or we called him, but he wasn't available. So what's really cool now, it's in beta right now, beta testing. So I think about half of our new users are able to use it. We're about a month and a half from now, it's going to be available to all new users. And then we'll slowly roll it out to existing users. But it's going to show, let's say I'm calling you, Ellen. It's going to show when I initiated the call, if you picked it up or not, and then the duration of the call. We can do it audio or video. And then we both have to give consent, right? Because some states are two-party consent. So there will be a consent process before any of that happens. But then you'll be able to create a report that shows, okay, those calls have been working or they haven't been long enough, things like that. So that's the exciting new thing, calls coming down the pipe.
That's amazing. Yeah, the app it offers so much. The solutions just go on and on. The people just absolutely love it. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kevin. I really appreciate it, especially before a holiday weekend. One final talking point is waivers of fees for indigent people. I know that you had mentioned that if someone can't afford the subscription fee, that they may be eligible to get a fee waiver. Can you say a few words about that?
Yeah, really glad you brought that up. So sometimes people can't afford the site. We try to keep it at a reasonable price, the $99 per year base. If they can't afford it, so we're thinking you're working pro bono, they've been declared indigent by the court, or they're on government assistance like food stamps, we will waive the fee completely in those cases. And we do have a form for that. It's a fee waiver form. If the parent fills it out, they have to prove they qualify. But if the practitioner fills it out and sends it to us, we'll push it through. So I'm going to give out my email. It's kevin@ourfamilywizard.com. kevin@ourfamilywizard.com. You can print off the fee waiver from our website. You send it to me. I'm going to push it through. No questions asked. Get complimentary accounts. We've done 22,000 free accounts in the last 4 years.
That's amazing.
So it's super generous. We also have a military discount. Current or former military, they get half off. It's like a buy one get.
Great. Awesome. Thank you again so much. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast. Remember, the information shared in our episodes is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal advice. Stay informed. Stay empowered. This is the Wright Family Law Divorce Podcast.